Welcome everyone to tonight's meetup, which is live streaming thanks to JK. And yeah, we're so happy to be here to be able to share the teachings with all of you here. And we're gonna do a review of the meetups we've had in the past weeks. Yeah, so usually we have the happiness lab on Saturdays, and then we have Monday's right view lab, and then also we have the karma lab on Wednesdays. Yeah, and Fridays is the purpose lab. So today we're gonna go over the karma lab first, and yeah. So karma, when it comes to karma, yeah, obviously we are all interested in that because it helps us understand how things are unfolding in our lives. Most people think karma is something to fear or something negative, but actually karma has both positive and negative meanings. And in everyday life, we focus more on how we can transform our lives by creating good causes, what we call good causes, because causes are what bring about effects. Effects are everything that's happening in our lives, and it has a cause, according to the Buddha. Buddha teaches us that everything that's happening, all the effects, they all have corresponding causes. Nothing is happening randomly or by chance. If we understand the cause and effect relationship more and more by listening to the Dharma, the teachings of the Buddha, we're going to feel empowered to create a happy future for us and for people around us to the extent we can have an impact. That's the beauty of learning it. So as an introduction, we have this book, If You Plant Seeds of Happiness, Flowers of Happiness Will Bloom. So yeah, first we're gonna do this reading. Let me see, I think Yuichi is a co-host, right? Okay. Yeah, so just a kind of a very simple introduction to karma or cause and effect. It's a very good book. It's about how small things affect our tomorrows by Kazushi Okamoto. And because karma is explained in terms of everyday cause and effect, so it's very easy to put it into practice. And once we practice the teachings, then we can actually understand how everything is getting unfolded. Yeah, so that's the benefit of it. So let me read this part for you. Thank you, Yuichi, for sharing this on the screen for us. So this is from chapter 1, lesson 1. The first step on the road to happiness is not blaming things on your destiny, even when you feel that things just don't work out well for me. How do we feel when unexpected things happen? When it's something good, we think, gee, I'm lucky. When on the other hand, it's something bad, we ask, why me? Or we think, it's not my fault, it was just a piece of bad luck. Thus, when something unexpected happens, which is to say, when something whose cause we cannot determine happens, we use expressions like luck, coincidence, or by chance. But let's stop and think about the matter. If you look up chance or coincidence in the dictionary, the definition is something that occurs without a cause. But are there in fact things that happen without causes? Shakyamuni, the historical founder of Buddhism in our age, stated clearly that there is a cause for every effect. There is no effect that does not have a cause. In Buddhism, this is called the law of cause and effect. Law means the universal principle that applies always and everywhere. There can be no effect without a cause, and if there is a cause, an effect will necessarily result. Shakyamuni assures us that this holds true in every age and wherever one goes. To put it in simpler terms, a seed that is not sown will never come to fruition, and a seed that is sown necessarily will. If you were told that in olden times a melon was produced without a seed ever having been sown, wouldn't that be ridiculous? If someone said there were sunflowers blooming in Brazil that didn't come from seed, would that be credible? If a melon was produced, it was because there was a melon seed in the beginning. And if sunflowers bloomed, it was because there were sunflower seeds. In exactly the same way, there is a cause or seed for every effect, and there are no effects that arise without causes. In the worlds of natural science and medicine too, the grand premise is that there is a cause for every effect. Even with terrible infectious diseases that, if contracted, would once have meant certain death, scientists have discovered methods of treatment by locating the microorganisms that cause the diseases. Since the diseases have causes, it becomes possible to treat them. If there were a disease that had no cause, there would be no way to prevent it or cure it. When airplane or train accidents occur, specialists conduct thoroughgoing investigations into the causes. Human lives are at stake, so the most thorough investigations are carried out until the causes are determined. Everyone knows that accidents do not happen by chance, through sheer coincidence and without causes. Yet, when things are not going well for us, or the result we hoped for is not forthcoming, we tend to use words like by chance or coincidence, avoiding the effort to think things through. But it is very important at such times to stop for a moment and think about what the cause or seed of the effect really was. That process will provide us with hints that will lead us to a happier life. Okay, so yeah, this book has a lot of little cute cartoons. So you see the little pig here with a shovel in his hand. He was trying to grow something, maybe, I don't know, some kind of flower, but it turned out to be wilted. So it didn't turn out to be very good as we expected it. Most people, they just say, oh, I'm unlucky. Oh, it's my parents' fault. They didn't give me enough resources, or this or that. But actually, like the little pig was saying, it's important to think about the causes. So that's the first step in learning about karma. You know, people bring us a lot of difficult questions about karma. They want to know how karma applies to that. So unless we understand those, the basics of karma, which is, this was like lesson 1. There are many, many lessons, obviously, in it. So unless we understand these basics, the foundation on which we can stand on, it's not going to be easy to address those more complex issues and incidents that happen that everyone is baffled. How could that happen? So the basics is very important. And yeah, so we cover them in our meetups too. And, you know, also what's important is when we are going through a hard time, our mind or heart just gets so distracted. We just keep thinking, oh, why me? I don't deserve this, you know, going down the rabbit hole. When our mind is so distracted, we cannot see the answers clearly. So that's why as we listen to the Dharma, to the teachings of the Buddha, the mind gains that stillness and the answers make sense to us more and more. So people, I have a lot of one-on-one sessions, and it takes like almost, I see for most people, at least 20 sessions. I listen to their life stories, what's going on with them. Gradually, their mind calms down, and then they begin to see the cause and effect relationship. And the rest is like, you know, on a roll. It's easier because once people understand the cause and effect, then they just produce more and more good causes. Good causes produce good effects. Buddha teaches us what that means is that if I plant seeds of strawberries, I'm going to get only strawberries, nothing but strawberries. And if I keep getting a lot of onions in my field and I'm like, oh, I don't like onions, I don't want onions. So I have to look at all the seeds I was planting. If I've been planting onion seeds And then I don't want to accept the harvest. So that's not reasonable. So that's the first step to kind of see the patterns or the cause and effect relationships. And to go one step further, I have another text that I would like to share with you about how mysterious our fate or destiny is, or karma is. So first we need to understand this. So it's not going to be simple. If we expect it all simple and then we don't get it, we dismiss it, we are missing out. So first we need to know it's not easy. It's very complex. So I have this text I would like to share with you. Okay, so this is the mechanism of fate clarified in Buddhism. We have a burning desire. Yeah, bigger is better. Thank you, Yuichi. We have a burning desire to know what decides our fortune, what determines a good fate or a bad fate. This is what we want to know the most. Why? Because the reason we are living is to seek happiness. So what determines whether we experience good fortune or bad fortune? This is a question on the causality of happiness, that which we want to know the most. To this question, Shakyamuni Buddha gave an answer. His teachings are known today as Buddhism. Let us learn about these. Yeah, and actually there are many segments. So we're going to have this lecture style meetup every 2 weeks. So I'm going to go through it in order, share with you one by one, so that hopefully by the time we get to the end of the material, you will have a better idea of this incomprehensible fate. Yeah, we can approach to that level of comprehension. So the reason we are living is to seek happiness. When we think about what we want from today, for instance, we all want to have a fun, fulfilling, and happy day. We definitely don't want today to be a bad day. We all hope we won't get into an accident or meet with disaster. Everyone wants to be happy. Nobody wants to be unhappy. That hope will stay the same tomorrow, the day after that, and so on and so forth. This means that what we are seeking is a good fate. We all want to avoid a bad fate. Without exception, what all people want to know the most is how we can gain happiness. We want to know what it is that decides a good fate. However, the mechanism of our fate is a mystery to us. The more we think about it, the more baffling it is for us. We cannot understand how it actually works. All around us, life and death are decided by a hair's breadth. Our fate can be totally changed by just the tiniest thing. However, because people don't know exactly why this happens, they put fortune or misfortune down to luck. But what exactly is meant by luck? Think about it. Nothing is so unequal as the circumstances different people are born into. Some are born into poor homes, others into great wealth and comfort. People may be born male or female, attractive or homely. Some of us are born in mid-Manhattan, others in a rainforest. But even if they were born in the same country, people's lives differ greatly depending on the era they were born in. If we find ourselves unexpectedly facing disaster or an accident, we lament our misfortune, wondering why on earth this had to happen to us, which is the exact questions I've been asking myself before I found Buddhism. If we end up being hospitalized, seeing people chatting happily as they walk past our window makes us feel jealous, and we sigh as we wonder, why me? Why do I have to suffer with this illness? When we experience a bad fate, we start wondering how this could have happened and who is to blame, pointing the finger at anyone and anything. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's because of my parents. It's my school's fault. It's because of my workplace. It's society's fault. The reason why we do this is that we have absolutely no idea what it is that causes our fate. Being at such a loss for explanations, even someone who would usually be skeptical of superstitions may resign themselves to the idea that their bad fortune is the fate decided for them by a god, or that some bad spirit has made this happen to them, or that perhaps they are just simply cursed. So just what is it that creates our fate? There is a teaching that solves the mystery of our incomprehensible fate, and that is Buddhism. If we come to know the mechanism of our fate as taught in Buddhism, it will be made clear to us how we can gain happiness. Then we can lead a positive life in which happiness can bloom. So let us learn about Buddhism, the teaching that clarifies the mechanism of our fate. Okay, so as you notice, this is just introduction to the topic of karma. In our karma lab, we've been talking about these topics for like the past 2-3 years, since almost the start of the pandemic and a little bit before that. It's not going to be easy to understand it like in one session. Yeah, so that's why one of our daily practices is patience. Patience is very important. Yeah, good things come to people who wait, as the saying goes. But today, I just wanted to really drive this point home, that we need to stop and ask when something happens, whether it's good or bad. When good things happen to us, they're good effects. They come from good causes. Initially, we don't see the connections. It feels randomly or by chance or by luck. Once we can identify the cause and effect relationship, we can duplicate and replicate those good causes, recreate the good causes to get the good effects. So that's the starting point. So if I give you one example, if we begin to see that we are a little calmer or have peace of mind, maybe because we're practicing patience. For example, we are going for a walk. Exercising is obviously required to have patience, because we cannot get fit like, overnight like this. We need to go through that process. So anything that builds patience becomes good cause that brings us good effect. Cleaning our area, our room, our house, our work office, the desk, decluttering and organizing things, creating patience. So that's one of our daily practices, patience, which is the antidote to anger or irritation or frustration. So so today we talked about the basics of karma, which we try to pause and ask questions instead of being quick to just project everything out there and blame others. Blaming others, it makes us more upset and furious. It's not solving the problem. So we go within for answers little by little. If you associate with us and come to our Sangha, Yuichi and I and our other leaders as well, we will be happy to walk you through the process patiently. So we will do this together as fellow spiritual seekers. Yeah, so I had 20 minutes to cover karma. The next 20 minutes, Yuichi is gonna talk about happiness, because everything we want to know is about happiness. We want to find happiness. And after that 20 minutes, I will cover about purpose and meaning of life. Okay, thank you, Yuichi, for reviewing the purpose of life. Oh, sorry, the happiness that we covered in the past 2 weeks. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna summarize the Dharma talk I delivered on the last happiness lab. Yeah, there was a mentioning of happiness in the previous slide that Bita was reading. Yeah, this is the center of everybody's interest. But at the same time, actually not many people understand what is happiness. And also people don't ask this question seriously, as if they don't care or they pretend they know. But when time comes, we have no choice but ask this question, the most difficult question to ourselves. In Buddhism, uh, compassion is often talked about. Yeah, Buddhism is the teaching of compassion. But compassion alone is not enough. Wisdom is also important. It is said that Buddha is the embodiment of compassion and wisdom. So these two are the two aspects of Buddha's enlightenment. We need compassion and wisdom. And by the way, does somebody know the definition of wisdom, especially in Buddhism? Let me share one slide to answer this question. What is the definition of wisdom? It is knowing the most important thing, not just a lot of information. In this time of internet, we can Google everything and then we can instantly have a lot of answers to our questions. Any question you can ask the internet or ask your smart speaker. Actually, we have Alexa, and you can ask Alexa, and what is the recipe of lettuce or something like that. So we can gather so many countless pieces of information through internet. So we don't need an encyclopedia in our house anymore. I mean, I used to have a very small set of encyclopedia my parents bought for me. We don't need that, the big books, like 20 volumes or 30 volumes. Everything is accessible through the internet. But knowing such a lot of information doesn't mean that person is wise. He has wisdom. Even though somebody has not graduated college or even high school, if the person knows the most important thing in life, Buddha said he or she is very wise. He or she has wisdom. So then what's the most important thing in our life? Yeah, what's the purpose of my life? What is happiness? This is the most important. Let me share with you one episode I heard recently from a Japanese elderly man. He was in his 70s, and he used to be a postmaster. He had a lot of responsibility in his job, but at the same time, in his late 50s, he was taking care of his two mothers, his biological mother and his mother-in-law, and both were demented. Yeah, he was very busy as a postmaster, but taking care of his two mothers, I think, together with his wife. I think that shows the level of compassion he had. Not many people can do that. It's very difficult to take care of a bedridden or demented person who needs a lot of care, but he did it. And then finally he retired. And by that time, both mothers passed away. So he decided he's gonna enjoy his life now. Now I'm retired. So he tried all sorts of hobbies: painting, cooking, tennis, ping pong, and mountaineering, and traveling abroad, etc., etc. But he was not satisfied. Little by little, he couldn't enjoy his hobbies anymore. He questioned to himself, is this all there is to life? That was his question. Yeah, even doing whatever he wanted to do. He had money, he had time, so he could do whatever he wanted to do, but he felt dissatisfied. That's one sign of spirituality, actually. You know, the question, is this all there is to my life? Sometimes, yeah, our life might be full of enjoyment, meaning, or happiness, what is called happiness, so to speak. But from the bottom of our heart, this question arises. It is all there is to my life. And that was the same as Siddhartha Gautama, who was a prince. His parents were queen and the king. He had everything except happiness. That was his motivation to seek for spiritual journey. So then, what is happiness? In short, happiness is the state of mind. We don't need to rely on external circumstances to enjoy true happiness. So by changing our mind, we can achieve true happiness. True happiness, by definition, means happiness that doesn't fade away and happiness that doesn't crumble or collapse. And in Buddhist term, that's enlightenment. And there is when we achieve enlightenment, it happens in an instant. It doesn't take time. Buddha said it happens in less than nanosecond. It's very quick. So even a person in his deathbed can accomplish this before he or she dies. But there is a certain journey until our mind becomes ready. Like fruits become ripe, more and more ripe by being exposed to autumn sunlight. If the fruit is green, it's not edible. So when it's fully ripe, we can eat it anytime. It might fall down from the branch of a tree at any time. But there is a time period after the persimmon tree blooms, flower blooms, and then the persimmon fruits will become ripe. There is a certain period. Likewise, in our spiritual journey, we need to cultivate our mind. And Buddha taught us how to do that. This is our daily practice. And Buddha said it is 6 parameters. Let me share it with you. 6 kinds of good deed. Yeah, if I mention this, when we learn if you want to learn advanced mathematics, like geometry or trigonometric function or differential and integral calculus, we have to start addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, and move on to common fraction and equation, and then I skip something, and then finally we reach that advanced mathematics level. Likewise, we need a certain journey. So this is how we cultivate our mind. 6 kinds of good deed anybody can practice. Giving, keeping promises, patience. Abida mentioned patience, effort, making effort, diligence, self-reflection. Yeah, I think this is what Bita explained in the first section. And self-cultivation. Yeah, you can see the word wisdom here. This is the most difficult one among the 6. Today, I want to focus on the first one, giving, in 7 or 8 minutes. Yeah. It sounds very simple, giving, practicing kindness. Everybody knows the importance of practicing acts of kindness. Yeah. What is unique about Buddha's teaching? Like Bida was explaining, if you plant seeds of happiness, which is kindness, act of kindness, you will surely receive good effect. Buddha said there's no exception to this law. And it's a simple act, but it's very deep at the same time. So it is all up to our spiritual growth. Which level are we in? Are we in elementary school first grade level, or middle school level, or college level, or grad school level? There is such level in just practicing act of kindness. Like elementary school kid will never understand the geometry or calculus. We need to keep on practicing again and again, and then we experience failure. Sometimes our act of kindness will backfire on us. Yeah, that's the reality. So it's both sides contributed to that failure. Me and the other side. What was wrong? One thing I can definitely say is our spiritual growth level was not enough. So we need to choose the timing or the recipient, and we need to purify our mind, and we need to forget about our expectation. There are a lot of important teaching just for act of kindness. Like the proverb goes like, a crab makes a hole that suits its shell. A crab makes a hole that suits its shell. If it's a small crab, it makes a very small hole. If it's a big crab, it will make a very big hole. So how much we can receive, it's up to our spiritual growth. So sometimes people ask us a lot of questions. Yeah, in the last happiness lab too. While I was giving a talk, somebody argued back in the chat box. I didn't read the chat box while giving a talk. I read it after the meeting was over. And yeah, people have a lot of questions. But one thing I want to emphasize today is to practice act of kindness with our all might, from the bottom of our heart. And when the time comes, sometimes maybe we need to sacrifice ourselves a little bit. Let me share with you one episode in the history of Japan, which is my home country. I just read the article about this episode, so I have very clear memory. So I just shared this in the Happiness Lab. And yeah, let me share one or two slides. Oh, yeah. The shipwreck of a Turkish frigate Ertuğrul in 1890. While returning from a goodwill voyage to Japan in 1890, she encountered a typhoon off the coast of Wakayama Prefecture. Subsequently drifted into a reef and sank. The shipwreck resulted in the loss of 587 sailors and officers. Only 69 sailors and officers survived and returned home later aboard 2 Japanese corvettes. The event is still commemorated as a foundation stone of Japanese-Turkish friendship. I didn't know this episode but until I read this article. I was moved. And yeah, it happened around here. This is Japan archipelago, and Turkey is here. It happened in September. September is the season of many typhoons. So this unfortunate disaster happened. 587 people were killed. And 67 people survived. They reached an isolated island of Wakayama Prefecture. And on this island, there were a small village which had only 400 households. And they were very, very poor. Yeah. So, but they thought this is emergency. They thought they have to save their lives. Some people was severely injured. They brought a lot of clothes and blanket and sweet potato, rice. Rice was the staple food, but they didn't have enough rice, so sweet potato was substitute. And they had some chicken. Then some of them were emergency food, but some of them brought even emergency food. They forgot about their own food. What they were thinking is, we need to save their lives. They were still breathing. They need food. So for us, we can endure hunger, and after a while, we can harvest more vegetable, and then we can do fishing in the ocean. So they forget about their own food and brought everything they had. So because they offered such heartfelt or kindness from the bottom of their heart, the people in Turkey, many thousand miles away, they were touched. Maybe they heard a lot of story from the survivors. So that was the beginning of the good relationship between Japan and Turkey. And this relationship still continues. So when, for example, Bita mentioned the good practice of cleaning. Cleaning is very important practice in Buddhism. While doing cleaning, sometimes our body, hands and face and all parts will get dirty because of dirt and dust or dirty water. But we don't care, we don't worry so much while doing the cleaning That's how we can sacrifice ourselves while practicing good deed. That kind of concentration is very important. Even though dirty water splashes on my face while doing the bathroom cleaning, I don't care. But in the no ordinary life, if a dirty water splashes on my face, I get panic. Oh, it doesn't happen while doing the cleaning. Yeah, so this is how we should practice 6 parameters. Okay, so time is already running out for me. So now Vida is going to talk about Purpose Lab, the content of Purpose Lab.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Yuichi, for sharing with us about happiness and the important element in pursuing happiness to be able to do kindness from the bottom of our heart. Yeah, the level of sincerity, how authentically we do something for someone. This is so crucial. And actually, it has something to do with our life's purpose too. So while we are not sincere enough or authentic enough, it's very difficult to think about our life's ultimate purpose or savor that genuine form of happiness. Yeah, it really touches us a lot. I mean, Yuichi talked about the historical facts. Like, when I think back about my childhood and me and my mom and my brother, we would take a bus to go somewhere, I think to visit like relatives. And I think my brother was a little bit sick or something. And suddenly on the bus, and the motion sickness and everything, he was not feeling good. He was nauseous. So it just came out suddenly. And the person, we were all standing because the bus was full. And the passenger next to him, his pants unfortunately got dirty. My mother was like, all red faced and apologizing. Oh, I'm so sorry. That gentleman, he was so kindly. He said, oh, it's nothing. My mom even offered, like, I would be happy to wash it for you. And he was like, no, it's nothing. When a kindness, in this case, so we caused harm to that gentleman, the passenger in the bus, and how he responded to us. He could have made it like a lose-lose situation. Oh, bad mouthing us. I mean, it was not intentional, obviously. Things happen when, especially with children. And that's what we hear sometimes in the world. But, the passenger was so kind. To this date, I think more than, you will know my age, but more than 40 years have passed. Me, my mom, and my brother, every time we're together, if we talk about this incident, it still continues to warm our heart. That's the power of a kindness when it's done from the bottom of heart, genuinely. And why does that have something to do with our purpose in life? Yeah, that's what actually Rick covered it for us. So I feel it's a little, I do disservice to review it because probably don't remember it as well as he explained. But yeah, something that we did study was from one of the books we have. When we think about our life's purpose, because purpose is different from short-term goals. We all have short-term goals. Today I'm going to do this, tomorrow I'm going to do that. And that's important because as humans, we need to work. We have a lot of obligations, taking care of our family members. So we have a lot of short-term goals to fulfill. But those short-term goals are different from life's ultimate goal or purpose. And life's ultimate goal, it has something to do from birth to death. So we cannot just focus on one segment of it, the short-term goal, and then think about life's ultimate purpose. So it spans like the whole time from birth to death. So there is something about our impermanence as, if you have studied Buddhism, the word impermanence pops up so often. Mysteriously, we don't hear this word so much in the USA for whatever reason, or many other capitalistic societies. But yeah, when I lived in Japan, I was learning Buddhism there for 8 years. I think almost every day, if I was listening to TV or radio, I would hear the word for impermanence. They call it mujo. Mujo means impermanence. Everything changes. Nothing is permanent. It's always in a constant flux. So if you want to understand impermanence, yeah, there's a kind of a funny story. This is another book that we use in our meetups, Unshakable Spirit, Stories of Compassion and Wisdom. And I think Rick selected a very funny story for us here that I thought I would share with those of you who couldn't be with us. It's number 13. Pray that I will never die. Having heard of the great virtue of the hermit monk Ryokan, an 80-year-old man came to him with a request. There are things I still want to do, so I'd like you to pray that I live a little longer. About how long do you want to live? Inquired the monk. Unless I know the age you have in mind, I can't say the prayer. Well, 90 would give me only 10 more years, so I'll say an even 100. Another 20 years, very well. But when you turn 101, you'll have to die, all right? Can I ask for a little more time? How much more, tell me? How about till I'm 150? 150, is that enough? I don't want to ask too much. Don't hold back. Little by little, the old man's request spiraled up. He wanted to live to be 200, no 300, no 500 years old. Amused, Ryokan couldn't contain himself. As long as you're asking, you might as well go all the way. Go on, tell me what it is you want, he urged. The man finally said what was really on his mind. All right, then, I'd like you to pray that I will never die. A man threw a party for his friends and served blowfish, a prestigious culinary treat, but one that can be deadly. This is another story. Everyone was too afraid of the possibility of being poisoned to try it. Then along came a traveler. They offered him a plateful, and when he came to no harm, they all helped themselves in relief. Afterwards, someone asked the traveler if he had enjoyed the dish. You all ate yours already, he answered. In that case, I'll eat mine. Sengai, a revered Zen priest, lay on his deathbed. His followers handed him a paper and brush and asked him for some final words of wisdom. He wrote simply, I don't want to die. The followers had been eagerly looking forward to some profound last words. Seeing what he had written, they felt consternation, afraid that his reputation would suffer irreparable damage. After conferring, they came up with a plan. What you wrote is fine, but if you could add a little something to it. Sengai consented, but when he handed the paper back and they read it, they were flabbergasted. He had added 2 words. I really, really don't want to die. Everyone's ultimate wish, it seems, is the same. So let's look back at the story. Yeah, so there were 3 stories here. So the first one, yeah, about the person who was already in his 80s, yeah, 80-year-old man, but he didn't want to die yet. He asked for a little bit longer, 10 years more, 20 years more, no, we can make it 150. It kind of shows our desire that we are all made of. Yeah, Buddhism teaches us that we all have desires. We are made of these desires. In this case, this is the desire to live a little bit longer. it's probably the sign that we still haven't done what we were born to accomplish. We're not ready to go yet. So purpose of life is something that once we fulfill it, we will be content to live and content to die. Yeah, of course, we don't want to die, but once we fulfill our life's ultimate goal, we would have that contentment. So that's one thing we learned from that first story. And yeah, so when we think about how we live everyday life, you know, we go to school, we work, we take care of our family members. But like Yuichi was explaining at the beginning, no matter what we accomplish, it always feels like, well, something is missing. What else should I be doing to feel that happiness? Genuine happiness that doesn't fade away, doesn't crumble, doesn't collapse. That's what really makes us feel content to live and content to die. But what is missing? So because we have that feeling of kind of emptiness, something is still undone, the business is undone. So that's why everyone's wish that, yeah, I don't want to die, so pray that I will never die. And then the second story was about blowfish. I don't think we heard of this in America, but it's a culinary treat in Japan. I don't think I've had it. It can be deadly if it's not treated properly, so it can be scary. I don't think I want to eat it. Yeah, but so everyone was, you know, kind of afraid of the possibility of being poisoned to try it. So they all wait for each other. Oh, okay, you ate yours, and now I see you haven't dropped it. So okay, I will eat mine. You know, that's how much we detest to get harmed and yeah, lose our precious life, obviously. And the last story too, even someone, Sengai, a revered Zen priest, even someone with such a high status. So just I really, really don't want to die. So what is it that we need to accomplish so that whenever death comes, we can say, okay, I'm ready to go? Only such a thing, when we ask such a question, the answer to it is considered as our life's purpose. As we all know about Steve Jobs, the founder of the Apple company. So he always said that, you know, when you look into the mirror, you ask yourself, is this what I want to be doing today? If not, he tried to create a change. And I think, yeah, Rick was sharing with us about this other book, Mastery by Robert Greene, the American author. And part of it was about how it's important to get to our life's ultimate purpose. We need to avoid the false path. That's what Robert Greene talks about. The false path is a path that other people, maybe as when we are younger and then later on too, other people always have some kind of agenda for us. They want to kind of manipulate us, or they want us to do what they think is best for us. And when we are younger, unfortunately, we fall into this trap. Maybe many people in their older age too, it's difficult for them to find that inner calling, that true voice inside that is always kind of steering them in the right direction. But then somehow we deviate from that because of the pressure, whether it's peer pressure or family's expectation of us. So because of that, we sometimes go astray from the path that brings us to our life's goal, ultimate goal, that makes us feel, I'm so glad to be alive as a human being. That's where we want to arrive at. I am so glad to be alive. That's what Buddha and his teachings are guiding us to. The happiness that holds us fast, never to abandon us. But if we are walking on the false path, which is not, we're not being true to ourselves, so obviously that's going to be difficult. Yeah, so that's something that we learned from Rick through his discussion. And also he talked about how important it is to kind of remember our childhood. What was it that when we were little kids we were good at, or we felt like so much at home, and then little by little all these obligations and responsibilities placed on our shoulder and kind of moved us further and further away from that authenticity. So coming back to that, that's also very important for us. And also, I was very happy learning about the negative emotions that come up when our desires are impeded. Yeah, so as Buddha teaches us, we're all made of desires, just like a snowman is made of snow. So if you remove the snow from a snowman, there's no more snowman. So similarly, for us without desires, there's no human being there. So we are made of these desires, and we need to kind of ask ourselves, these desires that are making us go after our short-term goals. For example, okay, let's say we want to have like a gorgeous dinner. Well, Halloween is coming. Maybe it's more about candies or cookies. But yeah, next month, November, Thanksgiving holiday, people are looking forward, obviously, to these gatherings, which is, of course, very good, bringing people together, sharing meals together. It's one of our short-term goals. And because we are aiming for it, we are moving in that direction, and we get so much pleasure out of it. We feel so happy, like during Thanksgiving, obviously, or New Year holidays. People feel so happy that sometimes we think, oh, that's my purpose in life. And then we just want to chase the next short-term goal, the next one, the next one, the next one. And then before we know it, it's like, oops, it's time to go. I haven't arrived at my life's ultimate goal. So when we go after fulfilling our desires, what happens is that also those negative emotions that come up whenever those desires are impeded, instead of just being frustrated. So this is part of the process or the path that actually leads us to become true to ourselves and understand why we are here, why do we live, and how can we fulfill our life's purpose. Instead of just turning the other way, avoiding those negative emotions, when we sit with them and when we understand where do they come from. So yeah, that's part of the process that leads us to our life's purpose. We ask ourselves, why do I feel the way I do? So Buddha teaches us about 5 desires we all have. We learn about these things by listening to Buddhism. Oh yeah, Rick talked a lot about how important it is to, when you listen, like, first of all, the relationship between the student and the teacher or the mentor. We observe the mentor. We learn how they do something. After observation, we internalize, we process and then internalize that information until it becomes like second nature. So how do we do that? When these negative emotions occur, 5 desires we all have: desire for food, desire for money or possessions, material things, desire for lust or relationships, desire for recognition or acknowledgement or validation from others, and desire for sleep and leisure. Yeah. So this is basically what we learned in the meetups. Today we are running out of time. The more we can understand which of these 5 desires is being impeded right now, that's what making me irritated, then we can feel empowered in understanding where they come from and the antidote. So today we learned about the antidote for anger was patience, and also blaming others. Blaming others, the antidote for it is self-reflection. So the more we engage in these daily practices, the calmer the mind becomes, more human-like mind we will have. And that process will bring us closer to life's purpose of life, to life's ultimate purpose, which is the happiness that holds us fast, never to abandon us. So I hope to see you in our meetups for more explanations. I'm sorry that we had to go fast and we couldn't cover everything. Thank you to our technical savvy friend, JK, and thank you, Rick, and thank you, everyone else. And we have the YouTube channel here in the chat box too. So thank you very much and hope to see you next time.